All right, here we are again with another guide. This time around, we are doing double guide. One for Smol White and another for Red Hood. And I have upgraded my Red Hood into MLB in case you guys always question, oh, should I MLB Red Hood? Now the answer is, what would Sky do? WWSD. So that's basically it. I overloaded it. She ended up having about like 32% attack, pretty good, like some elemental damage, 2 lines of max ammo, and some charge speed, 1 line of charge speed. So this Red Hood is a fairly decent one. Okay, and if you guys didn't notice, I have Smol White at MLB already. If you guys didn't know, for those that couldn't wait, you can check your mileage, and if you have enough silver ticket mileage, you can actually find her in the shop. Obviously it's RNG, but good luck to the ones that want to core 7 her. You can get her to core 7 through this. We can get it for MLB for her, and then if you want to get more copies, you have to go through that. Yep. So, favorite handy dandy notepad. Actually, so let's start off building off from the previous video that we have, which is talking about Smol White. And a lot of people are probably wondering like what's the skill build for her and overload. So the skill build for her is, the general idea is the burst will give her the most damage increase, but also her skill 1 is better than her skill 2 slightly, but they're roughly about even. So if you can see here, with skill 1 max and burst max, it's like 121, but then skill 2 max and burst max, it's like 119. But if you have all of them max, it would be 131. So the idea behind it is, so skill 1 is slightly bigger, so in terms of investment, you can go this one, low budget, and then if you want to go a little bit higher, you can go 557, and then if you have to choose between which one to go first after that, it would be skill 1, and eventually 77 I think is good enough. But again, a forewarning, if you want to like use her, she is going to be good in terms of especially Pilgrim Tower, and like especially for beginners that don't have like AoE units for campaign. So that's actually pretty good to use her. I remember when I was like beginner, like AoE was really good, so she will end up being pretty good as well on that one. But I don't think that, personally, if I have to choose, I would probably go actually with here. But if you like Snow White and wanna take her to like more, then you could go here. But if I have to say, actually, yeah, it's either this or this, because I wouldn't really use her for raids as yeah, unless it's like a solo raid that has weak against iron, then that might be the case. So I'm more leaning towards here, in terms of like just kind of low investment. But then again, burst is very expensive, so yeah, I'm more around this part. So I guess I'll just personally, I would just look into upgrading her. As someone who is like in late game already, I don't really need the AoE. I'm more looking to upgrade her at around only when I really need to in solo raid. But yeah, so in case you guys really want to push Smol White any further forward, then her overload is max ammo, and then 4 times attack, 4 times LA, and then crit rate, crit damage, or hit rate. I mean, that's like whatever really, but these are the minimum that, well, these are like your goal if you want to look into her, using her. This is not charge damage, this is crit. Okay, just want to make sure. But yeah, So that's Smol White. Now let's talk with Red Hood, because there is a lot of like controversy. I don't know, there's like some people saying that, oh, she's underwhelming. And uh let's start with showing. At the very least, I have done some calculations comparing some different things about it, and also kind of like I did a little bit of testing when I was testing her with a boss, actually not using the Union shooting range. I know this shooting range has been updated, but personally it is a kind of, there's mobs, so like it's a lot to get like accurate hits on that. So because like there's gonna be AoEs, like pierce shots on the mobs. So as usual, we have done our visited our friendly handy dandy best buddy that probably hates us already. We keep beating her up and then just like leaving her like your ex. And yeah, so any case, pros and cons for Red Hood. I think a lot of people have been always comparing her with Alice, and she is a low investment compared to Alice, because in terms of overload, because there is less reliance on max ammo and charge speed. Like charge speed is basically just additional damage for Red Hood. So Alice, though, like she her damage is just like way more, much more better, especially when you're doing, you want to have like enough max ammo so that you don't reload more than at least at most you reload just once during full burst. And if you have high enough max ammo, like high roll it on her max ammo rolls, she could actually use Bastion, and you would have the entire Bastion. You can have the entire duration of the full burst with her just bursting. So that's like really min-max like Alice. That's why she does have high reliance on overload. Meanwhile, like for Red Hood, you're kind of chilling. You can pick whichever one you want. You can go with a little bit of max ammo, a little bit of attack, charge speed, charge damage. So there's a lot more options for her, and I'm gonna show you later on that one what Red Hood needs. Her burst, you guys have already known, it's basically designed for boomer hands. Yeah, so that's why you can just hold left click. It is such a nice change of pace, especially when you're using Alice, because when you're using Alice and you try hard, you spam left click and right click a lot. So that is basically designed with boomers in hand mind. And then the biggest thing, which I think people kind of underestimate, which is also why Alice is actually one of the top meta characters that you guys have to realize, is this unconditional pierce. It's really good for bosses where you can abuse the double shots. So like Blacksmith core, when you destroy both guns on Blacksmith, when you hit the middle core, you actually hit the core and like the body. And then another is Stormbringer. When you hit the core on Stormbringer, you hit the core and the body also. And that's also why like Snow White and Maxwell were like really good against Stormbringer. So yeah, Pierce hitbox, it goes bigger when she's bursting, so it could hit extra parts and extra mobs also. So that's why that's like really big. I think like this is one of her bigger selling point, which is basically gets us to the point she's just like another Alice in Iron Element. And that is actually pretty huge, right? Like in gacha games, you guys have to realize, you start looking, they're just gonna design the same character in a different element, tweak it a little bit, but that's gonna be how gachas are. And You guys are complaining at like, oh, it's she's a little bit weaker than Alice, or she's weaker than Alice, but she's basically still Alice, right? And Alice is basically the gold standard right now, or the highest standard. Actually, it's not just the gold standard. It's just like in the top, along with Modernia. They both Alice and Modernia are the top DPS. There's also a reason why they are still, even to this day, like they're also like the highest DPS like in solo raid. You combine Litter, Blanc, Noir, Alice, and Modernia, right? You've seen Kira done like last solo raid like 2 billion. So now the difference is obviously you can't burst faster, and I have done the math on it. I have done some math for you guys already, and it does show. So like with Alice on auto, Red Hood on auto, and then all right, let me zoom it a little bit. Red Hood on auto, Alice on auto, and Alice with a little bit of skill issue. And this is kind of like how I'm differentiating it. Alice with skill issue is like manualing it, so a little bit faster than auto, and then Alice with gaming chair. So if you guys have let's just, if you know you have gaming share, you know you have gaming share. And if I also added some other calculations, like what if it's like with Maxwell, and then what if it has like extra charge speed attack, I'll link this document if you guys are interested. These are, I just want to give a disclaimer that these are kind of like rough estimates, but at the same time it gives you a good idea. And so what is probably the sad truth that I will course through here that you guys are sad about is here. So Red Hood with Maxwell is doing like 72. What, don't think about what the number represents, but in relation to the other numbers. So with all that calculation, Red Hood with Maxwell 72, Alice with auto with auto bursting, by the way, with Maxwell is 78. So so you can see that Alice auto is actually roughly about 10% more damage than Red Hood auto. So just and I actually did the testing with Nihilister, and it actually does come out something similar to that, which is like an example would be this one and this one. Oh, oops, not that one. This, yeah, oh, actually, yeah, this one and this one. So you see this one is 2.2 and this is 1.9, which is close to 2. So it's about it does about come, which is 10% ish damage. So like it kind of proves, like with my actual testing, the damage comparison has been pretty fairly accurate as well. So there's that. Too many numbers, shut up chat. I'm just talking about the process that I went through. Okay, I spent like 14 hours of this. Now shut up and listen. You're stuck here with me. And so my observation is basically like stronger than Alice, or stronger than Summer, Anise, and Scarlet if you can use the Pierce advantage. So because I did a situation against Nihilister where I was just intentionally targeting the Pierce, or actually half targeting the Pierce. So when the AI is autoing, I guess I'm not getting 100% accuracy on getting the pierce damage with the body parts, but you know, it's basically like about like 50-70% more uptime on the pierce. And then there are times where I didn't focus hitting the parts. So and what it does come out is they're actually roughly the same. And in this situation, the Summer, Anise, and Scarlet combo, alongside comparing it with Red Hood and Maxwell combo, which is like, I would say Red Hood and Maxwell is basically it's the same way as like how you're combining Summer, Anise, and Scarlet. They're kind of like they're kind of like married together. So if you can use the Pierce advantage, it actually does come out stronger. Red Hood does come out stronger, and this is against like a boss that is neutral. Nihilister was fire, so the electric is neutral on fire, and the same goes with Red Hood. She was like neutral on fire also. So yeah, my middle opinion on it, so after pros, is she's just on par with Summer Anis and Scarlet if there's like no pierce or parts or bonus, but it does need investment a little bit more, or but need the investment, yeah, more investment, because like for example Scarlet only needs like 10-1-1, but if you're talking about Red Hood, in order for her to kind of achieve that similar goal, it would be like 7-7-10 or like 7-10-10. That's probably what it needs to make her really work. So Red Hood does feel like she is a little bit of skill dependent. I'll also talk about the skills earlier on the prioritizations and kind of which one is a little bit higher priority than others, and I'll show you the math also why or how that goes. Another good thing about her, which is it could also be a bad thing, it does share the same support as the standard DPS, so like standard attack buffer, slither, and then like the typical bunnies, the Naga novel. Miranda also works, and like I'll show you the other different comparisons also in the charts. I have that. And then now obviously this is like a hit or miss, right? But Red Hood does need to burst. Meanwhile, like Scarlet and Modernia, for example, can perform well without bursting. Now that could be both good and bad, but you know that's just heads up, kind of like it's kind of like a middle opinion. Now the cons, I think she does need higher skill investment compared to Alice. Overall, the highest, for example, Alice doesn't need skill too because it doesn't really need her, it doesn't give her more damage, right? But for Red Hood, all skills does give her more damage, which is why her ideal is 10-10-10. But I will talk about also later which ones are like the different breakpoints that you could like aim for. She is a pretty selfish DPS, so similar to Alice. Is like, well, actually Alice has a little bit of buff, but aside from burst one that is likely going to be used only one time in the fight, there is no other kind of other time where she benefits the team. And then if the boss has limited or slow respawning HP parts, then Snow White would be stronger. So examples of that would be Chatterbox, and then you guys also know Modernia Solar Raid was also an example of that, where you could take advantage of the burst timings of Snow White to destroy the parts, right? So that's where I would say you would use Snow White over Red Hood. And I would say I would use either Snow White Red Hood, or Snow White and Maxwell, or Red Hood and Maxwell. That's kind of how I would do it. Now, other con that I think I just want to point out, because people have pointed it out, and if you really directly compare her with Alice, yes, RH Red Hood is weaker. And if you directly compare her with Modernia on a boss without parts or pierce, yeah, Red Hood is gonna be weaker. That's just how it is. But you're also comparing him against the top most, like the strongest DPS. Now I know people are concerned, like, wait, come on now, it's an anniversary. It better be the best. Come on, why? And again, I already talked about it earlier. It's like that's just kind of how gachas are. Like they're just gonna make a different character, probably like a side grade, and then a different element. Welcome. That's Red Hood. So RH is mid. No, listen. Wow, just no. God. Anyways, all right. Moving on. Burst sheet comparison based on optimal Alice. I showed that earlier. In terms of overload, what you actually also don't know, which actually overload tiers is basically, yeah, overload tiers. So for the overload tiers, one charge damage, or no, I mean one charge speed is equivalent to 2.4 charge damage, which actually is about the same as her multiplier on her skill 1. So just a fan fact, I guess, for those. So basically one line of charge speed is basically equivalent to one line of charge damage. So in that situation, you can actually set basically for Red Hood same priority between charge speed and charge damage, but in terms of like other option, you know, priority, elemental, and attack, as obviously, because you know you want to make her advantageous on her element, and then you need at least like one ammo, or I think at least one ammo is more just, I wouldn't say need, but it's a huge quality of life. And this is also me talking about the earlier part where Red Hood does need lower overload investment compared to Alice, because for example for Alice you need at least ×2 charge speed if you want to just have her solo without needing Maxwell, right? And then she needs a lot of ammo, right? Now for Red Hood, it's basically like, you know, LA attack that is the typical one, and then just like maybe one ammo, and then you can kind of play around between charge speed and charge damage. Obviously you would probably prefer charge speed, mainly because like if you're not controlling her, then charge speed would end up actually being better. Skill priority, this is the skill priority. If you're poor, you go 447. Low budget, skill 2 is a higher priority over skill 1 if you have to actually pick between the two, but they are roughly the same. In fact, I would even say that you could level up skill 2, then skill 1, then skill 2, then skill 1. So you could alternate that too if you're trying to eventually like 10 them. But this is just to give you an idea. 7-7-10 is probably the ideal for a lot of you. Probably a lot of you are probably starving, or maybe 7-10-10, but eventually you want to get to the 10-10-10 part. But you know, a lot of people are struggling. Burst, I know burst, yeah, people are gonna complain like, oh god, another burst. Well, here's the thing, I have done the math already for you guys, so you guys got, oh god, you guys are spoiled. But basically, okay, just to give it a perspective, if your burst, so if you have all level 1s, right, level 1 skills, and if you have max burst, it would put you, where is it? Where, oh my god, I'm lost. God dang it. Oh yeah, right here. It would from 49 to 73. Meanwhile, if you leveled up, if you max your skill 1, it's gonna be from 54, and then if you max your skill 2, it's gonna come 54.9 also. So basically your biggest power spike is your burst. So this is like half of your damage from skills come from like your burst being leveled up. Now once you max all of them, it becomes like 91. So that's just to give you guys perspective. So you start from 49 to it becomes 91. Now you guys might try to do some math and add it. It's the way multiplications work, chat. Like when you have multiple sources of numbers, it goes higher. Okay, chill. Okay, now cube, I personally would go with resilience if you're manualing her, which I think a lot of the competitive ones will do. If you're autoing, I think you could choose these, but I also think resilience is also just as good. So like I think that's fine. This Bastion is probably if you are doing it with bunnies, which has ammo restore. So this might be good if you're running her with the bunnies. This one, yeah, personally I didn't do the intense math on this one. So, and you probably don't have a lot of high levels on it. You probably have leveled up your resilience anyway, so you're likely going to use one of these two regardless. Units burst 1 and burst 2 on the sheet. Okay, all right, so I did some comparison for the different burst 1s and burst 2s, right here. For the different burst 1s, I have the ones that actually kind of sort of make sense in this particular order: Yawn, N102, Litter, Miranda. Actually, Litter and Miranda are roughly equal actually, so they're all, Litter was actually lower than Miranda, but this is only looking at Red Hood's burst. If you actually, obviously team-wide burst or team-wide damage, Litter would be better, right? But if you're looking at just like specific one, you could actually use Miranda. And then obviously Dorothy, but Dorothy is, that's a conditional, like that's, oh, there's parts. If there's parts, then that's where Dorothy would do more damage because it's a completely separate multiplier. Now for burst 2, this order, okay, we got Quincy, we have Rupee, Quincy, Dala, and then Naga without Tia. I don't know why I did that, but it's just a calculation. And this is not with core, so assuming that this is no core. And then Uni. So actually Uni is there. I mean, she's not that much better than like Rupee or Quincy, so relax. Like people are suddenly like, oh my god, Uni meta. No, shut up. She's down here. It's like, look at the number. It's like 96 to 94. That's not that much comparatively. Now this other one, with, I included it, Naga with the shield buff, like Eder or Tia shield. Then this is the burst only, no core again. And then Summer Helm. So Summer Helm is up here, and I'm gonna assume that if you're using Summer Helm, like obviously this is against the elemental weakness point, and then after that would be Novel, and then Blanc. But I'll show you some interesting thing. You might notice that Blanc is like up here, right? Like she's like the highest. But if we start like combining the different B1 plus B2, you'll see something a little bit different. This section is comparison with the core damage. Oh, the core damage. So if we're targeting the core, I just look at the top ones. Again, this is Naga without Tia would be up here, and then Summer Helm, and then Novel is up here, and then Blanc, and then obviously Naga with Tia, you know, with the skill 1 is way up here. Obviously, if you can trigger Naga's skill 1. Now here's the different combinations. Like if we combine both burst 1 and burst 2, Litter plus Novel is up, you know, here. So Litter, Blanc, and Noir is actually down here. But then if you can actually notice that Litter, Novel, Privity is better than Litter, Blanc, and Noir. And yeah, because of Privity's attack buff is actually like kind of making up for it. And then Naga, Tia, Litter, Naga, Tia without the core. This is without core. Although why would you use Naga and Tia without core? That's just you guys understand, right? And then Dorothy and Novel at 183. Wow. And then Dorothy, Tia, Naga, and this is with parts, not core again. So Dorothy, because she's a separate multiplier, and this is assuming that there's parts. So you just have to realize, like, if there's parts, like, go with Dorothy. If there's no parts, then you might want to explore other, like, I didn't include volume plus like mass because they're kind of, you can use them together. If you're using volume, try to use mass, I guess. But because it's more critical based and, you know, percentage based, I didn't want to calculate it. You guys could do it. Good luck. And I guess, like, if you're building team 3 or onwards, anyways. But yeah, oh, so which part are we now? All right, that's the burst 1, burst 2 on the sheet. That's basically kind of like the kind of rough estimate that you could use. Burst 1, burst 2, you can play around with those are really the ones that actually make sense to use. I did some math. No, I did some math. Like, I said some math. I didn't say I did all the math. Relax, chat. There are some people that are saying, like, oh my god, they used like Snow White with Red Hood versus Snow White and Maxwell. But you have to realize that you lose about like 15% or so damage on just Snow White alone if you don't have Maxwell. And same with Red Hood, she also loses 15% damage. So it's like, when you both combine Red Hood and Snow White, which are both kind of selfish unit, then you would also just lose that bonus attack. And I don't know how you guys are bursting with Snow White, because sometimes, like, you have to burst a lot earlier, and I don't know if you are using litter with it. And you have to keep in mind, when you're using Snow White with Maxwell gives extra charge speed. And so when you're bursting with Snow White, did you make sure that you still have litter's buff, right? That's another thing to consider. So yeah, I know a lot of people are probably like, oh god, like, Snow White is doing more damage than Red Hood. Yeah, well, I think that, again, if the bosses have more like pierce, like, that you can do, I think Red Hood will come out a lot more on top, because outside of burst, Red Hood can do more damage, and Snow White, pretty much, like, her damage isn't as great. So yeah, now talking about the other burst trees with Red Hood, basically, and actually with Smol White also. So I'll talk about Red Hood and Smol White here. They're best together because it's iron and it gives attack and charge speed buffer. But something to keep in mind when you're using Maxwell, just make sure that if you have a third attacker in the team, make sure that Maxwell has, you know, the other attacker both of them don't have higher attack than Red Hood, because otherwise Red Hood is not going to get that buff. You have to remember that Maxwell only buffs the top 2 attack, highest attack. Now, the original Snow White, they're not really paired really well together, like, because they're 2 main DPS, unless you have other good support with it, because they're kind of 2 selfish DPS. And so using Tia Naga, for example, will make it so that Snow White isn't gonna, both Snow White and Red Hood are not gonna do as much damage, because they only really have Tia Naga, and then, like, who's your other burst one, right? You know, you could be using like litter or volume or whatever, right? So you just have to pay attention to that. You could use them together, both Snow White and Red Hood, if, for example, like with Maxwell, with low burst, low investment, and then she has low attack, so it makes sure that both buffs go to Red Hood and Snow White. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, Modernia, right? Modernia, she would have like neutral synergy. It's just like big more damage with anyone in Red Hood or Smol White. And their Scarlet, neutral synergy, just more damage again. It could be with bunnies, could be with Naga, or any other team where Scarlet's fine. If it's guillotine, I would say neutral synergy, just pretty much damage. I think for Red Hood, you could probably take advantage of that burst taunt to once to keep guillotine alive, because it only reset once, right? I think one example is like, for example, in Solar Raid Modernia Phase 3, I think my guillotine could tank up until like the very last part, and probably, you know, having another taunt would kind of keep that RNG less annoying. So that's just one example that I could really think of where I could use Red Hood Burstu. Summer Anise synergy, there's not much synergy with her unless you use with Brevity, kind of like Dorothy, Novel, Red Hood or Smol White, and then Summer Anise and Brevity. So if you ever want to use that. 2B, I wouldn't really use him with 2B because there's really not much synergy to support units. They're not that good to combine. I think it's like a waste of combo of like potential of 2B if you use them with Red Hood. A2, I just want to point out, this is bad synergy. A2 or any parts or rocket launchers, mainly because A2 just kind of focuses on the parts and AoE damage, but that's the same focus of Red Hood. So you're wasting Red Hood's main advantage, which is the pierce damage, if you combine them with A2. So unless Red Hood's damage is like not really enough, so if you're like weak enough, then maybe that I could see that working out. But yeah, you know, I just want to point that out. In general, I would say that is bad synergy. But with Smol White, A2 or rocket launchers or other parts bonus buffers is good synergy because she doesn't deal more damage on parts. So Smol White does need that. Soline, Julia, Smol White, Sugar, this is just neutral synergy because of Iron. And Drake, Privity, Yulha, that's like burst 3 buffers, more like flex, and then Helm is for healing. So those are the teams and the units that you could use together. It's basically like you just use whichever burst one and then whichever burst 2 that are kind of, I wrote down here. I will make this available for you guys to take a look at it. Now obviously, again, please, if you guys are sharing this, just make a big disclaimer that these are kind of just like rough estimates. If anything, this is just to help myself, and I'm just like sharing this to you guys. So yeah, if you guys have suggestions, you can talk to me, but at the same time, I am sick right now. I've been up for 15 hours. I'm actually sick. I actually got sick while this stream, so holy. Anyways, that's gonna be it for me. GG's. It's been a good time. This is a long video. I'm too lazy to cut it. You guys enjoy. Peace.